Good afternoon. A good friend of mine once described me as a unicorn, a mythical creature. After all, you don't find many black men with PhDs in engineering in this country. You don't find many black men who lead major research universities. You don't find many black men asked for ideas about growing economies and growing innovation. Look around the room. Let's look at the statistics. It's clear underrepresentation is an existential challenge in STEM, every bit as grand a challenge as those promoted by the National Academy of Engineering. According to the National Science Foundation, 67% of scientists and engineers work in these occupations. 67% of the scientists and engineers that work in these occupations are Caucasian. About 21% are Asian. The remaining groups are a very thin slice of the pie. Hispanics, about 6% of working scientists and engineers, and African Americans, about 5%. But for me, it's about more than numbers on a pie chart. It's actually personal. When I got my PhD in electrical engineering and computer science at UC Berkeley in 1991, I was one of about 30 African Americans that year who earned PhDs in engineering in the United States. That's 30 in the entire United States. You could fit us all into a single classroom. The numbers are still sobering today. Even today, African Americans earn less than 2% of PhDs in engineering. During my undergraduate years at Georgia Tech, I'd look around the lecture halls and the labs, and I was often the only person of color in the room, or one of very few. The same goes for the halls of academia. I'm the first African American chancellor at UC Davis, and the second in the entire UC system. And I've often been the first African American in various academic leadership roles. I was the first department chair in electrical and computer engineering at Georgia Tech and the first dean of engineering at Georgia Tech. And by the way, these experiences come with the typical microaggressions. I'll just describe one scenario that has played itself out several times in my career. When I went to my first meeting of chancellors and presidents in our athletic conference at UC Davis, we were making introductions, and I introduced myself. I'm Gary May from UC Davis. One of my counterparts said to me, "And what is your role at UC Davis?" This is a meeting of presidents and chancellors. I thought my role would be clear. However, this experience occurred, and it's been an echo of similar experiences I've had at each of my leadership roles in the last several opportunities in academic leadership. So that is not okay. We must change the expectations and the outcomes for our increasingly diverse populations. There are many reasons why one might argue that diversity in STEM is imperative. There's social equity, closing the pay gap, graduating enough STEM grads to meet projected workforce demands, et cetera. All these are valid reasons and worthy of consideration. I have a more practical argument. Diversity drives innovation and leads to better outcomes. Without it, we see inferior designs and products that omit women or people of color. Here's an example, automated faucets and soap dispensers. In some restrooms, if I put my hands under the sink palms down, I don't get soap or water. Why? That's because the dispensers are not calibrated properly for the darker pigment of my skin. The first airbags in the auto industry almost killed women passengers. Why? Because they were tested on crash test dummies that had male anatomies. These are just a couple of examples. There are many more, some around voice recognition, facial recognition. But the point is clear. Diversity as a practical matter leads to better outcomes. It's not just more engineers that lead to more innovation. More diverse engineering teams lead to more effective and inclusive innovation. So how do we increase the diversity of talent in STEM? First, let's accept that diversity is everybody's job. It requires commitment from the highest levels of an organization and all the way throughout. We need coordinated and comprehensive plans to implement proven initiatives from K through 16. We must reach students while they're young, as early as preschool. I think back to my own childhood. I was good in math and science, but there weren't any engineers in my family. My mother was a teacher, and my father was a postal worker. I didn't understand what an engineer did until I was exposed to it in an enrichment program in high school. We must also make STEM exciting and engaging. It's about more than developing the next must-have gadget. STEM is about building the knowledge and tools to create the brightest possible future. It's about the why, not the how. We also need to have teachers and role models. Our educational systems face an inadequate supply of teachers trained in STEM. What used to be the most common background of physics teachers where I used to live in Georgia Well, PE, because physical education is close enough. And we must have programs that are targeted specifically for underrepresented students in STEM. I have made this a focus of my career. I developed and led programs that broaden participation in STEM at the undergraduate, graduate, and professional levels. And targeted efforts like these can lead to transformative success. They helped Georgia Tech, my former institution, that College of Engineering, become the largest and most diverse of its kind in the country, a top 5 caliber program, so both excellent and diverse. One of the programs I created was called Facilitating Academic Careers in Engineering and Science, or FACES. And over the duration of that program, more than 430 minority students received PhD degrees in science and engineering at Georgia Tech, the most in the nation. Finally, we must help underrepresented students in STEM build community. Mentoring plays a critical role here. Remember how I talked about feeling isolated? Mentors were pivotal in my own career. A critical mass of available and dedicated role models allow students to envision their own future success. You can't be what you can't see. That's a message I've repeated throughout my career. Like I said, enhancing diversity isn't just the right thing to do for social equity, though it is the right thing to do. It's what the nation must do to remain competitive in the global workforce. We need to engage students of all genders, colors, and backgrounds to create a robust and competitive economy. No matter what the background is, of the kid is, whether it's a black kid from St. Louis like me or the daughter of farm workers in Fresno, we all have a place in STEM. Their successes are our nation's and our world's successes. So to inspire the next generation, we need herds of unicorns. This is our collective imperative. Thank you.